Hana, it would be nice if you could tell us about your story with photography. You know, how did you decide? Why? When did you? When do you begin? What are you doing? You know, and tell us about all this.
Okay. So it all started exactly. I got into photography 10 years ago. In 2011, it was a pure coincidence. I was studying at that time. I was still studying in university, and then the revolution happened, the January 25 revolution in 2011, and this is when, you know, all my future plans changed from wanting to, you know, pursue a career in art therapy and psychology and a completely different career to wanting to pursue a career in photography. In the revolution, yes, I took pictures with my phone because at that time I wasn't a photographer at all. But there was like a beautiful feeling in the streets and with the people. And I felt like I'm witnessing history being made in front of my eyes. And I wanted to document that moment. So, you know, I started taking pictures with my phone camera, and I never stopped since. It helped me, you know, rediscover my country and rediscover myself as well. And pursuing it as a career is very challenging, and it is still challenging. But I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. It is kind of challenging for me as a woman, especially in the beginning, because I wasn't familiar with you know, how to deal with people and strangers and go to places I've never been. I would describe my work as personal, not really documentary. It's kind of explores the, you know, chaotic inner world inside of us, interconnected with the outside world. Because I feel like even though the inner world and the outer world are both different, completely different than one another, but they are both somehow connected. It's like a parallel intersection.
And so now, in Lima Tourcoing, we're exhibiting another series that you have done. Could you tell us about that story, the beginning? What's the meaning for you? You want to talk about what? And tell us more.
Okay, so the story is called Fragments of Ourselves. And I started working on this project right before the pandemic. And unfortunately, I stopped, and then the pandemic happened, and I had to continue working on it during the pandemic, which was very challenging to me because I wasn't mentally and emotionally ready to work on such an intense and important project. So the series or the project, it basically explores the concept of waiting. You know, waiting for me is not just a mere phase. It's something that contains a lot of emotions and meanings that only the ones tormented by it would comprehend. And for me, this project was an attempt to understand the pain that accompanies waiting. And I started spending time with Sudanese women living in Cairo. Henna dancers. They go and they celebrate the bride and dance with her and, you know, put on costumes and music and dance the night away with the bride. So, and in Egypt, they are mostly all Sudanese. And I was always curious to know more about them. And I wanted to see beyond what everyone sees, you know, the happy dancing woman. So I started spending time with them, and I realized that working on the project during the pandemic was actually a blessing in disguise. You know, the waiting phase, and especially the waiting phase during the pandemic, forced, you know, me and many other people to get in touch with pieces of themselves that they didn't know existed, or they didn't know well enough, but they're very much still part of ourselves. And I felt like our internal state at that time connected us on a very, very deep level. Like we were both waiting. For them, some of them are waiting to go back to their home country after they have been betrayed by their husbands and left by their husbands. And some are, you know, dancers living the day by day and, you know, dancing to forget and playing with their pain. As Charlie Chaplin once said, to truly laugh, you must be able to take your pain and play with it. And some are just, you know, waiting for anything, for something, for a change, dealing with all these circumstances and still managing to stand your ground and make a living and raise your kids. And, you know, it is something.
And could you tell us about the form of your photography? You know, I mean, using the color, even the scratch on the prints and this.
Wait a second. I felt like I didn't want to portray them as victims or as fragile. I wanted to portray them in a romantic and poetic way, and strong, because they are actually very, very strong. With, you know, I used very intense colors like red and blue and black and white, you know, to kind of like mix all the different emotions one go through. You know, the images are all imperfect. They are all full of scratches and grains, and that was done on purpose because for me, this depicts life in its most honest and raw form. Because, you know, life is not perfect. It's full of scratches and it's full of grain and it's full of everything. So if life itself is not perfect, why do you want the photographs to be?